We're at the bottom of Daf Nun Zayin, 2 lines from the bottom, by where it says Tanu Rabbanon. So the Gemara here was discussing the meaning of the Mishnah when it said V'loi b'kavul. What's a kavul? So the Gemara first brought an opinion that said that perhaps a kavul refers to an emblem that a slave wears in his garment. Then Rabbi Vo says no. It makes more sense to say that the kavul is not this emblem, rather it's a head covering that a woman would wear under her hat. Now, in that, the Gemara brought a braisa to support this, and in that braisa it mentioned something else, which was an istama. An istama is a scarf that a woman wears on her head to cover any hairs that would stick out from under her hat. So the Gemara here brings a braisa about this istama, and then it's going to return to the kavul of the Mishnah. 2 lines from the bottom of the Zayin Amud Beis. Sagt the Gemara Tanu Rabbanon. Learned in a braisa Gimel Dvarim Nemru be'istama. There are 3 things that were said regarding the istama. Ein ba mishum klayim. The first thing is this istama, klayim doesn't apply. The isser of klayim, shatnez, does not apply. There are various reasons in Rishonim for this. Rashi here says the reason is because it's eina tvuya. It's not spun. The threads used for this scarf was not spun, it was just fibers that they pressed together that made up this garment, this material of this scarf, and therefore the din of klayim doesn't apply. The Rishonim add though, Taisus over here says that usually even if it's not spun, there should be an issa of klayim d'Rabbanan, even if not minatayra, but there should be an issa d'Rabbanan. But in this case, because this istama does not provide warmth for the person, it's just covering the hairs, so therefore even with the Rabbanon there's no issa of klayim. The same is also the tumah of a nega does not apply to this garment. And as Rashi says, the reason is because by negayim it says beged, and we compared the beged of a nega to the beged of klayim. We already had this kind of comparison before in the Gemara in Perik Mameh Madlikin, if you remember, when it was discussing what qualifies for being a beged, a garment. And on Shabbos, you're not allowed to go out with this istama into the Shusarabim. Mishum Rab Shimon Amru, in the name of Rab Shimon it was said, Af Einba Mishum Ataris Kalis. There is a gzeira that Chazal made. This is brought in the end of the Gemara of Saita, that after the Churban, they made a gzeira that the Ataris Kalis, this is a crown that the Kala would wear on her head, that she shouldn't wear this crown. So, regarding this istama, which was made of this material, they did not apply the gzeira. It was made regarding the gold and silver and beautiful things that they wore on their head as a crown, but not regarding this istama. Now the Gemara returns back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, V'loya kavul. So the pshat we said till now is that it refers to this head covering that a woman wears under her hat. Shmuel, however, says no, it actually refers to the emblem of a slave. Shmuel says, Kavla da avdotnan. The pshat of the Mishnah of the kavul is this emblem for a slave, and that's what's not allowed to be worn on Shabbos outside in the Rosh Hashanah, which would then mean that Shmuel holds that the head covering of a woman under her hat is allowed to be worn in the Rosh Hashanah. Frag the Gemara, Umi Oma Shmuel Hachi. Is it possible that Shmuel said that with a kavul, with an emblem of a slave, you're not allowed to walk out in Rosh Hashanah? V'ha'ama Shmuel, but Shmuel said, Yaitze ha'eved b'chaisim shebetzavare. An eved is allowed to walk out with this emblem that's hanging around his neck. Avaloi b'chaisim shebeksusay, but not with an emblem that's on his garment. So here we see that he allows an eved to walk out with an emblem tied around its neck. And as Taisus explains, the Gemara's assumption is, the Gemara's understanding is, that in the Mishnah when it says V'loi b'kavul, it doesn't make a distinction whether it's hanging on his neck or it's hanging on his garment, and therefore if Shmuel says it in the Mishnah, it says you're not allowed to go out with a kavul, meaning the emblem of a slave, that makes no difference if it's hanging on his neck or on the garment. So how does Shmuel over here say that he could go out with the emblem that's hanging around his neck? Answers the Gemara, Loi kashya. There's no question. There's a difference between a case when his master is the one that made the emblem for him, so he's afraid to go out with it, he's afraid that if it falls off, he's afraid to go around without it, and therefore he's going to come So if he's wearing it around his neck, that is. So he's afraid to walk around without it. So if he's wearing it around his neck, he's not going to take it off on Shabbos. He's afraid to walk around without it. Whereas something that he made for himself, he made his own emblem, so he's not afraid of his master. He made it for himself. He might decide to take it off. So therefore he's not allowed to walk out with it on Shabbos. The distinction between the one that's around the neck and that's on the actual garment, the Gemara will explain. But the point is, the Gemara is making right now the difference between a case where he made the emblem for himself. If he made it for himself, since it's not something which is necessary to wear, he decided to wear it, he might take it off. But if it's something that his master is commanding him to wear and made it for him, we're not afraid that he's going to take it off from the one that he's wearing on his neck. Fragt the Gemara, B'maya kim telahad Shmuel, David le Rabbi. So what did you now explain? That Shmuel was speaking about a case that his master made the emblem for him, and therefore when he wears it around his neck, we're not concerned that he's going to take it off. So if so, b'chaisim shebiksusai amayloi. So then if that's the case, the same should apply also with the emblem that's on his garment. Why are we not going to say the same thing, that he's not going to take it off his garment? His master commands him to wear it. He's afraid to take it off. He's not going to come to carry it on Shabbos. The same like if he wears it around the neck. So what's the difference? So the Gemara explains, no, there's a difference. Dilma mifsek. Regarding the emblem that's on the garment, it might fall off. Umirsas, and he's afraid to walk around with his garment without this emblem. Umikpale, he's going to take off his jacket, for example. He's going to fold it. Umachas kasve, and he's going to put it on his shoulders and walk around like that. So, and that's a problem. That's carrying on Shabbos. Even a garment that you're allowed to wear outside on Shabbos, but to take it off and carry it on your shoulders on Shabbos, you're not allowed. You're not wearing it as a garment, so you're carrying. So over here, we're afraid that it's going to fall off his garment. And then he's going to fold his garment. The one that he's wearing on his neck, we're not afraid that when it falls to the ground, he's going to pick it up and walk home with it. He knows he's not allowed to carry it. We'll see soon in the Gemara. In some cases, we are concerned actually that he's going to do that. But right now, the Gemara is saying, what he's wearing on his neck, even if it falls off, we're not concerned he's going to pick it up. But if it's on his garment, and if it falls off, what we're afraid is that he might fold his garment and put it on his shoulders and walk home that way. If you go out with a garment that's folded, and you're wearing it on your shoulders like that way, or you placed it on your shoulders, Shabbos, on Shabbos, chayiv chatos. You chayiv a carbon chatos. This is carrying on Shabbos. Same applies as a very important halacha. And again, to any garment you wear, if you're wearing a jacket and you take your hands out of the sleeves of your jacket, there's a part of the garment that's not being used as a garment should be, to be worn, so then you're carrying. So you have a jacket, if you're placing it on your shoulders, so you're not wearing it the way the garment is worn, and therefore you're carrying on Shabbos. Shmuel said to Rav Chinene bar Shila, Kulu Rabbanan de Beit Reish Galusa, all of the Rabbanan that were by the Reish Galusa, Lo lifku b'sar b'li chasimi, should not go out with this emblem on their clothing, because of this concern that if it'll fall off, they might come to carry their garment on their shoulders on Shabbos. Levar minoch. Besides you, Rav Chinene, the lekapti alecha de Reish Galusa, because the Reish Galusa is not makbar on you, even if you don't wear the emblem. He knows that you're loyal to them, and they weren't makbar on him. So if it falls off, he's not going to come to fold his garment on his shoulders. Now the Gemara comes back again to the statement of Shmuel. This is the statement that Shmuel said, Shmuel, ha'eved b'chaisim shebetzavare. A slave could go out with the emblem that's tied around his neck. But he can't go out with the emblem that's attached to his garment. Tanya nami hachi, the same it says in a braisa. The slave could go out with the emblem on his neck, not with an emblem that's on his garment. So now the Gemara shows us that there's another braisa that clearly contradicts this. The braisa says, a slave should not go out with an emblem, whether it's tied around his neck, and also not with an emblem that's on his garment. So we see that both are forbidden. Clear contradiction to the other braisa that makes the distinction, like Shmuel, between if it's on his neck or on his garment. The Gemara here will now quote the rest of the braisa and then come back to answer this question. What does it say in the braisa? Either way, any of these emblems, ein mekablim tumah. They are not susceptible to tumah. And the Gemara will explain soon why. It's not a keli. doesn't have a halacha of a keli at all. It's just an emblem, and in order to be makabel tumah, to be susceptible to tumah, it has to have a halacha of a keli. The Braisa continues another din, v'loi bezug shebetzavorai. An eved should not go out with a bell hanging on his neck. But he is allowed to go out with a bell that's hanging on his garment. The Gemara will explain soon why this is, what's the reason for this distinction. Both of these bells, mekabel tumah, they are mekabel tumah. They are susceptible to tumah. And the Gemara will explain this as well. The Gemara will explain the entire Braisa, as we'll see. A behema should not go out on Shabbos, not with an emblem that's tied around their neck, or not an emblem that's placed on any garment that the animal wears. And not with a bell that's tied to its garments, and not with a bell that's tied around its neck. And here, regarding the bells that an animal wears, they are not susceptible to tumah. So before we said a bell that a person wears is susceptible to tumah, the bells that the animal is wearing is not susceptible to tumah. Again, the Gemara will explain why this is. So now we have the contradiction. Shmuel, and in the first Braisa it said that there's a distinction regarding the emblem. If he's wearing it around his neck, he's not allowed to go out with it, because he might fold his garment then and carry it on his shoulders if the emblem falls off. If it's tied around his neck and it falls off, we're not concerned. We're not concerned that he's going to pick up the emblem and walk with it in his hands. He knows he's not allowed to carry it that way. And the other Braisa, the second Braisa, it said that either way, a eved, that a slave, is not allowed to go out with any emblem. Not if it's on his garment, not if it's around his neck, it makes no difference. So the Gemara says, Leimes, shall we simply answer, similar to what we said in the beginning here, there's a difference if his master is the one that is making the emblem for him, telling him to wear this emblem. So then we're concerned that he's going to be afraid to wear his garment without the emblem. He's going to take off his garment and fold it on his shoulders. And if he made the emblem for himself, if the emblem falls off, so he's not going to wear it. He's not afraid. He's going to wear his jacket without an emblem. So he's not going to come to carry on Shabbos. And therefore the Braisa says that either way, the Eved is allowed to go out. The Braisa says that he's not allowed to go out, actually. He's never allowed to go out with an emblem that he makes for himself. So the Gemara says, no, that's not the answer. Either way, the case over here is that his master is the one that's commanding him to wear this emblem. There are two different materials that this emblem is made of. Either the emblem is made from metal, or the emblem is made from clay. If it's made from metal, so it's a more expensive material, so he doesn't want to leave it there. He knows his master's going to be upset at him that this expensive emblem that he made for him, he lost, it fell off. If it's just a clay, cheap emblem, so then he's not going to come to pick it up. So over here the Gemara is making a distinction regarding the emblem on the garment, that there are certain cases that we're afraid that he's going to pick it up and carry it on Shabbos. If it's something that it's expensive, and he's afraid of what his master's going to say if he lost it, if it fell off. So over here, we're afraid that he's going to carry it on Shabbos. If it's a material that his master is going to be upset with him if he doesn't have this emblem, then he can't go out with it on Shabbos. He might come to pick it up and carry it. But if it's made of a cheap material like clay, so then he can go out even if it falls. We're not going to be concerned that he's going to pick it up on Shabbos. And now it makes sense that this Braisa here, the second Braisa, that makes no distinction how he's wearing this emblem. Either way, we're concerned because it's expensive that he's going to pick it up and carry it. So it makes sense that it's talking about a metal emblem, midiktani, because of the other halacha that it says in this Braisa. That either way, the emblem is not mekabel tumah, it's not susceptible to tumah. So now the Gemara explains. If we're talking about a metal emblem, so that's we understand what the Braisa is coming to teach me, that the emblems, although they're made of metal material, but because it's not made into a utensil, so therefore it's not susceptible to tumah. Ha-kelim dithu, but the same material of metal, if it is made into a utensil, mekabli tumah, then it is susceptible to tumah. So that would be what the Braisa is teaching me, that these emblems are not considered to be a utensil. But if you're going to tell me that we're talking about an emblem that's made of clay, Mishaltit Tanan, that's what the Braisa is teaching me. So Hani hu delay mekabli tumah, ha-kelim dithu mekabli tumah. Would we be able to say that it's only because it's not a keli, therefore it's not makabel tumah? But if it would be a keli made out of clay, it would be makabel tumah? It's either way not makabel tumah. This is a material that even if it is a keli, it's not makabel tumah. Because Vatanya, we learned in Abraisa, kli avonim, kalim that are made from stones, kli glolim, or they're made from dung, kli adoma, made from earth, clay, ein makabel tumah. They're not makabel tumah. Lo medivrei Torah, v'lo medivrei seifrim. Not minat Torah and not midrabanan. So why would the Braisa, if it's speaking about a clay emblem, be teaching me that these emblems are not makabel tumah? It's l'chatchila, a material that's never makabel tumah, even if it was a keli. So we must say that this Braisa is speaking about a metal emblem, and that explains the difference between what it says in this Braisa and the statement of Shmuel. And the first Braisa, he was speaking about clay. Regarding clay, if a clay emblem falls from a garment, we're not afraid that the slave is going to pick it up and carry it on Shabbos. It's a cheap thing. He's going to leave it there. We're only concerned in a case where it falls off. Again, let me repeat that again. If it's around his neck and it falls off, we're not afraid that he's going to pick it up. If it's on his garment and it falls off, we're afraid that he's going to fold his garment on his shoulders. But in the Braisa, we're talking about an expensive emblem, so either way, whether it falls from the garment or whether it falls from his neck, we're afraid he's going to come to pick it up to bring it back home because his master will be upset at him. Shema Mina, this is a raya that there's a difference here, that the Braisa is speaking about a metal emblem, and therefore it's always going to be usher to wear it on Shabbos. Sagt the Gemara, now going to the other sections of the Braisa, and the next blot of Gemara, or so, will be discussing the halachas of bells, primarily regarding Tumah. We learned in the Braisa, you're not allowed to go out on Shabbos with a bell that's tied around your neck. The slave that has a bell tied around his neck, he's allowed to go out with a bell that's tied around his garment. So the Gemara asks, the bell that's tied around his neck, why is he not allowed to go out with it? So where was I holding? I'm starting again the Gemara from Omar Mar. You're not allowed to go out with a bell that's on your neck, on the slave's neck, that is. But he's allowed to go out with a bell that's on his garment. So the Gemara wants to understand what's the difference between the two. A bell that's tied on his neck, why is he not allowed to go out? Because it can fall off and he might carry it on Shabbos. So a bell that's on his garment, it could also fall off and he may come to carry it. So the Gemara answers, a professional sewed it to his garment and it's not going to come to fall off. Something that's sewn to the garment, there's no gzeira here. This is a statement we had before. The Gemara actually brought this regarding something totally different. The Gemara brought it regarding wearing a woven or a woven thing that's worn in the hair. And on that, Rav Huna Bereder Rav Yeshua said that these strands or straps that are woven, that are worn in the hair by the girls, there's no gzeira that she's going to carry it on Shabbos. But the Gemara is using the exact same statement of Rav Huna Bereder Rav Yeshua for something completely different, that a bell that's tied to that's sewn to the garment, we're not afraid that it's going to fall off. Unlike a bell that's around the neck, that we are afraid that that bell could fall off. Omar Ma, the Tanem in the Braisa said, so now we're going to talk about the bells regarding Tumah. An animal should not go out, not with an emblem that's on her neck, and not with an emblem that's on her garment. V'loi bezug shebetzavara, and not with a bell that's tied around her neck. V'loi bezug shebeksusa, and not with a bell that's on her garment. V'zeh v'zeh ein mekabel tumah. But either way, it's not mekabel tumah. The bells of an animal are not considered to be a keli, and they're not mekabel tumah. So the Gemara wants to understand why not. The behemah, v'zug the behemah ein mekabel tumah. Is this true that a bell that's used for an animal is not a keli and is not susceptible to tumah? V'raminu, and I'll ask you a contradiction. Zug shel behemah tmeya. It says clearly in the Braise, a bell of an animal is tummy. Right there. So it's a clear Braise that says that a bell used for an animal is susceptible to tumah. The Gemara brings the remainder of the Braise. V'shel deles, a bell that's attached to a door, is tahira. That's not susceptible to tumah because the door is connected to the house, which is connected to the ground, and therefore it's not considered to be a keli. It's part of what's connected to the ground, and it's not susceptible to tumah. How about shaldeles v'asil behemah? It was originally a bell used for a door, and now he's changing its use for an animal. Tameya, because he changed its use to be for an animal, so it is tamei. Shal behemah v'asay ledeles, if it's a bell that was used for an animal and it was susceptible for tumah, and now you changed its use to be put on the door. So you would expect that over here, once he changed its use for the door, it should not be susceptible to tumah. He changed its use. So the Braise says that's not the halacha. Even if he attached it to the door, and he attached it with nails, tumah. The bell remains tummy. He did not change anything within the bell itself. He just attached it to the door, but the bell is the same bell. And here's the law. Here's the halacha. I believe we had this before also already. Shekol ha-kelim yarden lidei tumasan b'machshava. Any kelim, they can enter into the status of being susceptible to tumah with your thought. If you designated to being used for a certain keli that's susceptible to tumah, just your thought, you mentally designated it for that, it becomes susceptible to tumah. But something that was already designated for a keli and it's susceptible to tumah, it can't leave that status unless you actually make a difference. You do something to the actual keli itself, change its shape, change its form, do something to the keli itself to change it. Not with any thought, or even over here, nailing it into a door where the person didn't actually change the bell itself. So, going back to the subject that we're discussing over here, we have a contradiction. In one Braise it says that the bells used for an animal is not a keli, is not makabel tumah, and in this Braise over here it says that the bell used for an animal is makabel tumah. So the Gemara answers like kasha. There's no question. The isli imbel, in a case where the bell has a clapper inside, it's a keli, it's used for that purpose, and it's makabel tumah. The lesli imbel. The Braise that says that it's not makabel tumah is because it's a bell without a clapper. So therefore it's not a keli, it's not makabel tumah. The Gemara asks, what's the distinction? Manavshach. Either way. If a bell has a status of a keli, so then even without a clapper, it should be considered to be a keli. Ilav manahu, and if it's not a keli, inbul mashvilei mana, just because of the clapper, it becomes a keli. So the Gemara says yes, in. Like Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani said, Omer Rab Yonasan, Omer Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani, Omer Rab Yonasan, minayin lemashmiya koil b'kli matches shehu tameh. How do I know if I have a metal keli? And over here we're speaking about a metal bell, that because it has a clapper inside, it makes a noise, that causes it to be susceptible to tumah. Shenemar, because there's a pasuk that says, Kol davar asher yavoi be'esh, anything that's used in fire, ta'aviru be'esh, you have to put it into fire to cleanse it, to purify it. So the Gemara dashens the word davar. The word davar here is extra. Why does it say that word? Even something that makes noise, that makes a sound, like a dibur, when a person speaks and he makes a sound, even if your keli is just in the sense that it has a clapper and a bell, and that clapper makes the sound, that itself is a reason that it should be susceptible for tumah, and you have to purify it. Taisus over here points out the obvious that this pasuk, Kol el davar sheyavi be'esh, is not talking about the halacha of being makabel tumah. It's talking over there about the case of when they brought the kalim from Midian, and the Torah is telling you that you have to be toivel kalim, you have to be metayr kalim, you have to be kasher the kalim that was used in things that are not kosher. That's what the pasuk is talking about. But Taisa says, because it's an extra pasuk, the Gemara brings it into this subject and darshans it for this subject regarding tumah, that the word davar teaches me that if there's something that makes a sound, it makes it susceptible to tumah. So now the Gemara says, what have you explained the braisa that we had before regarding the animal, that if it has a bell, it's not susceptible to tumah? What is this? Why? But the less imbel, because there's no clapper. Now, so let's go to another case in the braisa. What was the middle, the second case of that braisa? So talking over there about the slave. The slave is not allowed to go out with a belt tied around its neck, but he's allowed to go out with a bell that is on his garment. And then it said, but the bell is susceptible to tumah. But if the bell does not have a clapper, would this bell, even worn by a human being, be makabel tumah? You might think there's a distinction maybe between a bell worn by an animal or a bell worn by a human being, but the Gemara says this is not the case. I'll ask you a question from a braisa where it says, so a person makes bells. What is he using the bell for? One is a machteshes. This is when they crush the spices to make an aroma, so the sound of a bell is good for this process. We say this every morning in the ketayres. The shakayel yafal apsamim, the sound, the voice of speaking, or the sound of the bell, is good for the spices. Larisa, a bell that's made to place on a cradle, in a crib for a baby, to help it go to sleep. Or the mitbachais sfarim, or bells that were placed on covers of sfarim, so when the teacher brings the sfarim into the classroom or wherever he's learning, the children should hear the teacher coming. Or the mitbachais or the bells that are made on garments or bibs that children wear, so the parents should know about where they are, where they're going. Yeshlem imbol, if there's a clapper, tmeyin, then these bells are going to be tamei. Ein lem imbol, if they have no clapper, tahayrin, then they're tahir. Nitlu imbeleyen, if the clapper was removed, it had one, but it was removed, adayin to masan aleim, then the tumah remains. So one of the cases in this braisa was the bell that is used for children. So, and over here it says that only if it has a clapper is it tummy. So if we said that the braisa before was speaking about a bell without a clapper, and one of the cases in that braisa was the bell that a slave wears, and it says that it is makabel tumah without a clapper. So what's the difference between that case and this case of the bells used for the children? So the Gemara answers, Hanemili bitinoik. Over here in this braisa, when it says that it has to have a clapper, that's a bell that's used for a child. The lekola avidile, that's what its whole purpose is. It's made for the parents to know the whereabouts of their child when he's walking around, the noise. So without it, the bell is useless. It's not a keli, it's not accomplishing anything. Avol godoil, tachshetu, but for an adult, wearing the bell is as an adornment or as a decorative purpose. Tachshetule, it's a decorative thing for him. Afagav the lesle imbol, even without a clapper, it's still going to be susceptible to tumah. Okay, we'll stop at the Gemara over here. We have some more left to the Amid for today, but this begins a sugya that's going to carry all the way into Daf Nun Tes Amud Aleph, and we'll learn it in Mitzvah Shem tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody. Tzlach Rabbe and everything you do.